Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to be following up from my previous video about the top 10 popular movies that I don't enjoy. I'm going to be following it up with the top 10 unpopular movies that I do enjoy. So yeah, I've picked 10 movies out of my collection, 10 movies that I'm really happy that I own. I think it's fair to say that these 10 movies have had a lot of shit flung their way, to say the least. But for me, I am completely 100% glad that I have watched all of these movies in this list. These movies do entertain me and bring me a lot of joy. I do think they are competently made movies. They aren't the type of movies that are so bad they're good. Those types of movies like The Room and Samurai Cop and Garbage Pail Kids or Cats or anything like that. I think these are well-made movies that just didn't do well at the box office or didn't resonate with audiences at all. But I certainly got a very substantial amount of enjoyment out of all of these films. So yeah, I'm going to get straight into the list and kicking it off with my first pick with the Halloween box set. And the first movie I'm going to talk about is Halloween 3. I really enjoy Halloween 3 for what it is. Halloween 3 was the first Halloween movie I saw that I was ever introduced to. And I had a really good time with it as a little kid. Really thought it was a really fun Halloween movie. Had no idea who Michael Myers was. I hadn't been exposed to the John Carpenter film at that point. And yeah, I really enjoy Halloween 3. So got it in this box set here, which is I really do love this Anchor Bay box set. I think it's great. But I'm just going to be talking about Season of the Witch. So for me, like I said, Halloween 3, I love Tom Atkins in this film. I think it's great. I think the movie oozes the Halloween season. You very much feel like it is October when you're watching this movie. I have a really good time with it. I love the concept to it about these killer masks. The masks themselves, these three really cool design masks, of a witch, jack-o'-lantern, and a skull, are really effective. And what the agenda is with these masks, with this Silver Shamrock company that are making these masks, is absolutely horrific. When you see what these masks are intended for, it is absolutely horrifying and really unsettling when you find out what the plan is. The ending to Halloween 3, in my opinion, is just as impactful as the ending of Halloween 1. Now, having seen all the Halloween movies as an adult and looking back on the movies and having time to reflect on them, I think Halloween 3 suffers because of what that movie isn't. I think people judge it on what that movie didn't supply. I think people were expecting Michael Myers to return, and that's fine. But for me, the first two movies wrap up that Michael Myers story perfectly, in my opinion. In fact, I'd go as far to say we don't really need Halloween 2. But I'm glad it exists. I get enjoyment out of Halloween 2, absolutely. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I feel those two movies wrap that storyline up perfectly, and we don't need to go back to it. Majority of audiences disagree with that, and that's absolutely fine. But I think Halloween 3, on its own merit, is still a very good horror film, and I really enjoy it. And have an absolutely fantastic time with it. And like I say, that ending is just brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most horrifying endings ever. I just enjoy it so much. Edge of your seat stuff. And I think it's brilliant for what it is. So that is my first choice, Halloween 3. Such a shame that it was just judged on what it isn't rather than what it is, in my opinion. So I have a great time with that movie. So yeah, moving on to the second pick now, and a lot of these movies are the third installment of a franchise, particularly the next four movies I've got. But this next one, hear me out on this. Like I've said, these movies to me are in no way perfect. I just get enjoyment out of them. So the next movie I've picked is The Hangover 3. Now, hear me out on this. This is not a great movie. I wouldn't go as far to say this is a good movie, but this movie did make me laugh, and I did have a great time watching it. Out of the two sequels to The Hangover, this one feels less like a carbon copy of the original. It doesn't follow it beat for beat. In fact, The Hangover doesn't actually take place until the end of the movie through the credits. But I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think Zach Galifianakis is hilarious as Alan in this film. A lot funnier than the second movie, and maybe just a little bit more than the first. That's just me. I really, really thought he was hysterical in this film. And you've got John Goodman thrown in there for good measure as well. I mean, who doesn't love John Goodman? But like I said, this movie is far from perfect. Far, far from perfect. But I'm glad I've seen it. I'm glad I own it. I have a good time with it. It's fun. And yeah, it's not winning any awards. None of these films on this list are. It's just, it is what it is. But I like it for what it is. You know, I don't dislike it. I would never go as far as say I hate this movie or anything like that. It's garbage, it's trash. No, it offered me some humour that I really enjoyed. But yeah, other than that, it's nowhere near as good as the first one. Neither is the second one. But for me, I have to give it merit for not following the first one beat for beat like the second one did. So yeah, that is Hangover 3. Next up on my list is Spider-Man 3. Yeah, this is a bit of a funny one with me because when I saw this at the cinema, I absolutely loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. And it wasn't until afterwards, like a couple of years had passed, the dust had settled. And I was realising what people were saying about the film, that it was too silly, it was overboard with the dancing sequences, you know, and then I really sort of felt people turn on this movie, like as in, oh, Spider-Man 3 is garbage, it's the worst film ever made. And I just didn't get that. I didn't get that mentality of the reputation this film was building. I didn't understand that at all. I was like, no, it's a good movie. It really is. You know, it's not that bad. But as I go back to it, and as I go back to the first two movies as well, these movies are goofy, silly movies, in my opinion. All three of them are. You know, they are. The first two are massively, massively entertaining and fantastic with some great villains. Perfectly cast villains, in my opinion, with Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe. Really, really good choices, and they really do a good job. Thomas Hayden Church, I think, is brilliant as Sandman. I do think Topher Grace is miscast as Eddie Brock. But what I don't understand is people say this movie is completely void of anything good, which I 100% disagree with. The merits for me of this movie, the sequence alone where Sandman is putting himself back together, is visually one of the best things I've seen in film. It is fantastic. No words, no dialogue, just this somber music, and you feel everything that character is going through when he's reaching out for the necklace, when he's trying harder to sort of give himself structure. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. The ending to this movie as well, the end sequence at the sort of the little tower that's being built, I absolutely love, with all the scaffolding. The design of the Sandman when he's this giant monster, I absolutely love. I had a great time with Spider-Man 3. And yeah, the relationship as well between MJ and Peter, it really, really sort of was hitting its rocky moments, and you kind of sort of cared about them. Like, I always wanted MJ and Peter to get together, but it was just going down this road where I was like, no, please don't go down this road. I want these two to be together. You know what I mean? I didn't like where that relationship was going because I was rooting for them so much, not because of bad writing or anything like that. But I really, really dug Spider-Man 3. I had a great time with it. like I said, all three of these movies are goofy. This one just takes a step too far, especially with the dance sequences. I completely understand the hatred for those scenes in this movie. But for me, it doesn't weigh the movie down enough for it not to be good. There's just too many other good things in it I really, really enjoy. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on Spider-Man 3. It's the worst of the trilogy, but I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. The goofy scenes in it are bad, though. I am going to say that about it. But I still enjoyed it for what it was. Take away those goofy scenes, I think you've got a good, solid movie. I know that it's over bloated with too many villains as well. I wouldn't have put Venom in this film, if I'm honest. I would have just taken him out completely. But I think we were just at a point where we just wanted to see Venom on the big screen. I'm very disappointed that we didn't get to see Spider-Man 4, in my opinion. I was really sort of looking forward to seeing that, but it just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, Spider-Man 3, I just don't understand the hatred for it sometimes. Yes, it has moments in it which are bad, but I think overall the movie is pretty good, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on Spider-Man 3. Next up is another third installment to a franchise, and that is Batman Forever. Now, this is an absolute childhood staple of mine, this movie. I grew up watching it, and I absolutely loved it. Really, really entertaining movie that I really enjoyed. There are things about this movie that I don't think hold up very well, particularly knowing about the production behind it. Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey did not get along whatsoever, and I just find that Tommy Lee Jones' performance is constantly trying to outdo Jim Carrey in everything he does. Frank Gorshin to me will always be the best on-screen Riddler in live action anyway, but Jim Carrey, I do think he's really, really enjoyable in this film as Edward Nygma and as the Riddler. But yeah, you can see Tommy Lee Jones is constantly trying to outdo him in the performance. And yeah, it just gets really silly. Some of the stuff that Tommy Lee Jones' Two-Face does in this movie are just completely out of character, like him flipping the coin until he gets the result he wants. Two-Face would never do that. He'd flip it once and be done. That would be the decision made. But yeah, I do find Val Kilmer a little bit wooden in this film as well, if I'm honest. But saying that, I do enjoy this film. It visually is really, really appealing. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Seal's Kiss My Rose and U2's Hold Me, Kill Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me is just, two great additions to this soundtrack. And I love the score as well. And I love how well the movie looks, in my opinion. Yeah, it's not going to be everyone's favourite Batman, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I had a good time with it. That's just my opinion. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Batman Forever. It's flawed, but I do enjoy it. I do have a good time with it. It entertains me for what it is. Yeah, so I do like Batman Forever. So, coming up next, we've got Beverly Hills Cop 3. Again, another third installment that is weaker than the first two, in my opinion, but I do enjoy Beverly Hills Cop 3. I do get a kick out of it. I love the setting of this sort of theme ground attraction. It just really, really is a fun time. And I love the concept of Eddie Murphy's Axel Foley trying to bring the attention to this sort of this crime leader who is getting away with absolute murder. Really, he's really getting away with it, and no one believes him. And it just brought a lot of fun to the movie for me, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, nowhere near as good as the first two, but for me, I did have a good time with it, if I'm honest. Really, really enjoyed it. I do think it is quite a little bit underrated, if I'm honest. It goes way too much with the comedy value, though, compared to the first two, but that never really bothered me at all. I still had a good time with it and still enjoyed it for what it was. But yeah, I really, really resonated with Beverly Hills Cop 3. I just had a really, really good time with it. The weapon he gets at the end is just so over the top and so silly from Serge. It was great to see him back as well because he was really good in the first movie. But But yeah, I just really, really enjoyed Beverly Hills Cop 3 and just had a really good time with it. It's not the best movie, no, absolutely not. But I'm glad I own it. I'm glad I've watched it, and it does bring me a lot of joy every time I watch it. And I do think it makes for a really good, solid trilogy. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on Beverly Hills Cop 3. Next up, I'm going with the fifth installment of a franchise. And I'm going with Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Now, in my opinion, I enjoy all 10 of the original Star Trek movies. I'm not a diehard Star Trek fan. I've seen the original TV show and I've seen the Next Generation show. And they're very, very good television shows, in my opinion. And I know amongst diehard Star Trek fans, Star Trek V is pretty much considered the worst on-screen Star Trek property, as it were, the worst interpretation of a Star Trek story. Now, I can understand that with that film. I can understand Star Trek fans being annoyed at that film, being disappointed with it. Because I'm not such a huge Star Trek fan, I had a good time with Star Trek V. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I had a good time with it. I thought the opening scenes were like something out of Mad Max. It just this desert sequence I thought looked stunning. Some of the effects are a bit ropey, particularly when William Shatner's on the cliff at the beginning. But yeah, I know this movie had a lot of production problems with it as well, with William Shatner directing and wanting it to go in certain directions and things like that. But yeah, overall, I'm quite pleased I watched it and I did get a kick out of it. I just didn't mind it at all, if I'm honest. Really, really sort of did bring me a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure while watching the film. Just had a good time with it. Of course, it's nowhere going to be near as good, in my opinion, as Star Trek 2 or Star Trek 6. But yeah, I just still enjoyed it. It's the worst of a good bunch. It really is, in my opinion. But I do understand the negativity towards it. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I enjoy Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, for what it is, and I have a great time with it. I've even known fans to completely disown the movie and skip it completely when doing a Star Trek marathon. Again, I understand it, but I just really enjoyed it. It did bring me a lot of joy while watching it, and yeah, I just enjoyed Star Trek V for what it was. Not a great movie, but I'm glad to have owned it. I'm glad to watch it. I'll watch it many more times. I just had a good time with Star Trek V. So yeah, Star Trek V, Final Frontier. Next up, we've got another Jim Carrey movie. In my opinion, it's one of my favourite Jim Carrey movies that I know got a lot of shit when it came out. And that is The Cable Guy. Now, when this movie came out, I think in 1996, I don't remember any sort of marketing or advertising for this film at all whatsoever. I mean, Jim Carrey was massive at the time. The three hits he had in 1994 with The Mask, Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber, and then moving into 95, you know, he was really sort of in his element with doing Batman Forever and the second Ace Ventura film. And then when 96 came along, he did The Cable Guy. And I think with this movie, what audiences didn't like about it was its complete 180 shift in tone to his previous other movies. This was not the comedy that I think people were expecting, having watched his previous work. This movie is a lot darker and a lot more unpleasant, shall we say, to those movies, in my opinion. But I absolutely love that movie for it, because of its tone, because of its direction. Jim Carrey plays this cable guy who is, you can't suss him out really at first. He just wants to be friends with Matthew Broderick. And it just leads to some really unstable relationship material that goes in this film. It's really, really creepy and really, really unsettling. And I just think audiences weren't ready for that. I'm going to be honest, The Cable Guy for me is a 10 out of 10 movie. I absolutely love and adore this movie. Everything about it. It's probably the Jim Carrey movie I've watched the most. I just enjoy it that much. I think it's got a great supporting cast. Bob Odenkirk, Jack Black, Leslie Mann, Matthew Broderick as well, of course. I just really, really enjoy this movie and I have a great, great time with it. Probably my favourite sequence in the whole movie is just this dinner sequence where Jim Carrey has wormed his way in with Stephen, Matthew Broderick's family, and he's just pushing Stephen to his absolute limits and is completely poisoning his family against him. It's horrifying and it's terrifying, but it's so funny at the same time. It's just, I just can't get around it. Another scene that cracks me up is when Jim Carrey beats Owen Wilson up in the bathroom. I mean, that scene cracks me up every time. You've got the medieval knight sequence, which is just adorable. I love it. It's just, everything about this movie I absolutely love. I think it's one of Ben Stiller's best directed movies as well. I love Reality Bites as well. But yeah, this for me is like, I love this movie. The whole subplot as well of the two brothers from the sitcom, of one of them was murdered and did the other brother do it, and we never actually find out. It's just, it's so dark and funny. I just have such a great time with it. But yeah, it's such a shame audiences didn't gravitate it to as much, because kind of similar to Halloween 3, I think people judged this movie on what it wasn't rather than what it was, which is a real shame, because I do think The Cable Guy is really, really good. And yeah, I just enjoy it so much. It's probably my favourite Jim Carrey movie. So yeah, that's The Cable Guy. Next up, we've got an early 90s sort of sci-fi movie for me, which is, again, another one I really enjoy on rewatch. I really sort of picked up on what this movie was the story it was trying to tell and what it was trying to tap into, and it really sort of impressed me. And that is The Lawn Mower Man. Now, I remember my dad introducing me to this film, saying it was really good, give it a watch. So I sat and watched it and I thought, this movie's okay. The CG in it is terrible by today's standards. I mean, even by the standards it was made, the CG wasn't very good. The CG in this movie is terrible. But what I really like about this movie is its themes. Pierce Brosnan, who's pretty much coming up with, he's into computers and he's developed something that could make Job, the lawnmower man, who's quite, I don't want to say the word stupid, but he's quite slow and he's not the smartest guy. And he sort of integrates him into this computer to try and make him smarter. And it works, and it works too well. It just sends him into like the stratosphere in terms of intelligence. And it leads to a very, very creepy ending as well. The ending, the final shot in this movie is terrifying. It's very simple. It's almost as impactful as Halloween and Halloween 3, in my opinion. The end of this movie, the closing shot is horrifying. That Job actually succeeded in his mission. I just really, really dig The Lawnmower Man. I dig its themes more than I dig the movie itself. The movie doesn't look very good in terms of CGI. It really doesn't. It doesn't hold up at all. But it's still creative. It still has creative merit to it. It's got some great performances in it as well. And yeah, I just enjoy it. I have a great time with it. It's silly. It's silly with its effects, but I think its themes and its story were just a bit too ambitious for the time. It just couldn't execute it quite well with those effects. But other than that, I do think this has a great story with some great themes and a lot of good acting in it as well. So yeah, that's just my opinion on The Lawnmower Man. Really, really enjoy it. So coming up next, we've got the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I've never seen the Sarah McGillis TV show. I think I've seen one episode a long, long time ago. And I know fans absolutely love and adore that TV show, and the film isn't very well regarded. But for me, I love the film. I think the film is massively entertaining. And coming out in 1992, had a lot of fresh-faced casts to it. I love Donald Sutherland in this. He's great as sort of Buffy's mentor, and you've got Rutger Hauer as the bad guy. I mean, say no more. You know, what more do you want? Rutger Hauer as the villain, and anything is a stellar choice. And yeah, I have fun with this. It's a good little underrated vampire movie. None of the cast in this went on, I think, to be in the TV show. If they did, the names escape me, but I think it's all an original cast. And yeah, it's a fun little teen movie about Buffy killing these vampires and Rutger Hauer as the villain. You know, it's great. It's fun. It's a fun time. Like I said before, none of these movies are winning any awards or anything like that. But this movie entertained me for what it was. It's a great little vampire film, and I have a fun time with it. Like I said, I've never seen the TV show, so I can't compare the two. But the movie, for me, I really enjoy, and I really had a good time with it, and I really liked its cast. Really, really went into it with sort of not open eyes, but I went into this movie very blind. I didn't know what to expect, and I enjoyed it, and I had a good time with it. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Really, really enjoy it. Now, going on to my 10th and final pick. This is a movie by a director who sort of peaked too early, in my opinion, and went on to make some shite, to say the least. But this, to me, is one of his last good movies, in my opinion. I certainly enjoy this movie a lot more than most people do. And that is M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. This is my favourite M. Night Shyamalan movie. I absolutely love it. It's up there for me with The Sixth Sense. I know a lot of people would disagree with that. That's absolutely fine. I think where this movie failed was with its marketing, because I think this was M. Night's fourth film after The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs. So people were sort of expecting a twist with this movie. And I think when trailers sort of came out, people sort of worked out what the twist was going to be straight away. And the marketing for the movie just didn't help at all. It really, really sort of suffered from that, in my opinion, because at the time he was just so big and could do no wrong at this point, in particular. And then, of course, I think, you know, the quality of his movies took a complete nosedive. But for me, The Village is one I really, really enjoy. This movie creates atmosphere so fucking well, and it absolutely terrifies the shit out of me. With these monsters who live in the woods, and when you sort of see the monsters for the first time, I was genuinely creeped out, and it really, really got under my skin and really, really unsettled me. Now, when a movie does something like that, it's doing something right. When it gets a reaction out of you, it's doing something very, very well. But for me, I just had a great time with it because of how I responded to it. You know, it really, really put the shit up me, to say the least. I mean, that sequence in particular where Bryce Dallas Howard's in the forest and the monster's following her and she's blind, and you know, the camera cuts to her and then it cuts back and the monster's right behind the tree. It's horrifying. It's horrifying stuff. It really is. The twist for me, I won't spoil it, but it never bothered me. It never bothered me in the slightest. I know a lot of people saw it coming and they worked it out because of the trailers, but it never bothered me. I thought it worked well with the film, if I'm honest. And I still have a good time with The Village. I think it's great. I think those first four movies by M. Night are really enjoyable. And I think they're the best work that he's done. I'd throw Split in there as well. But yeah, really, really good stuff in my opinion. Really, really enjoy this creepy little movie with Joaquin Phoenix, with a great cast in it as well, with Sigourney Weaver and William Hurt. Have a really, really good time with The Village, and I think it's quite underrated in my opinion. If you've not seen it, or if you have seen it and it's been a while, give it another watch, because it does have some creepy elements to it, which really do work in my opinion, and I just think it's brilliant and I absolutely love it. So yeah, those are my top 10 unpopular movies, shall I say, that I do really, really enjoy, and I have a great time with these movies. Like I said, none of these movies are winning awards. They're not masterpieces by any means, but I do get a kick out of these movies, and I know these movies in particular have had a lot of shit thrown their way, but I do find some merit in them and do really, really enjoy them. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed these 2 videos I've done. I thought I would make one and then do the complete opposite. 10 movies that are really popular that I don't like, and 10 movies that are really unpopular that I do like, as a bit of a contrast. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed these 2 videos. And yeah, I'll leave the video there and say stay safe, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.